Let's give a nice little round of applause for everybody that has spoken so far. Thank you, thank you. So lots of great business resources, organizational resources that are out there available as you are on your journey, as Fiona called it, to moving to a more sustainable future. We're going to flip the conversation a little bit, and we're going to hear from some community leaders. And remember when I was talking about kind of painting the picture of what Resiliency Academy has been over the last 3 years? We purposely brought together communities and business leaders to have conversations about what it is to be resilient. And you cannot have a resilient community without strong businesses with outstanding sustainable practices. And we need community leaders with forward-thinking ideas on how to create vibrant communities so that we have downtowns with wonderful restaurants and shops for us to be able to explore and where we want to live and work and play. So I'm thrilled that we have Jen Andrews right here from UNH. She is the project director with the UNH Sustainability Institute. And then we've got Zach Luce from Keene, Karen Leo from Lebanon, and Jackson Kaspari from Dover. So it's exciting to have nice representation geographically from across the state, but you'll also hear some really good examples of what different communities have done, again, in their sustainability journey. So I hope you kind of think about ways that you might be able to connect with your own communities, not just these three here, but ask them questions about what they're doing, how they're doing it, so you can take it back and make a difference in your hometown. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen for moderating the rest of this, but thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Liz. And I want to echo the thanks for a great morning so far. Wonderful conversations. I know everybody is excited for this panel and also excited for lunch. I think you will find that the conversation will be so immersive that you won't even be thinking about that. Okay. So, again, my name is Jen Andrews. I'm a project director in the Sustainability Institute. So I have the privilege of working with Dr. Wilson and the others, Kat and Alexis, back at that table. I've spent the last 22 years working with colleges and universities, with businesses, and with local governments to help them meet their sustainability goals. And I've gotten to do that for the last 10-ish years at UNH. So I wear a couple different hats in the Institute. One of them is supporting organizations and networks outside of UNH to do this work. So, for example, we coordinate in our office New England Municipal Sustainability Network, where folks come together and share best practices, a little bit like an NHBSR, but for municipalities. And one of the things you'll hear from all of these representatives is, first of all, they're all members of that network and other networks. And they're all just innovating and so creative. I think one of the themes we've heard today is about innovation and creativity and community, and you're going to hear that reflected. So I want to kick us off here by just asking everyone to introduce themselves, a little bit about their communities. And in the first panel we heard, and actually we've heard a lot all day, about why sustainability is an important aspect of resilience. You know, for businesses, it's the risk and it's the employee retention and it's the competitive advantage. How does that translate to local governments? So if you can introduce yourselves to your communities and give us a snippet of that. Let's start with Jackson.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jen, so much for kicking us off. I'm so honored to be on this panel, and thank you to SBDC for hosting this event. It's really inspiring to see all these engaged business owners and business leaders around the state participating in something like this. So as Jen said, I'm Jackson Kaspari. I'm the resilience manager for the city of Dover, New Hampshire. Some of you might be going, well, what does a resilience manager do for a city? And I take on multiple types of projects, but really I'm working on supporting the community's goals in regards to energy and in regards to environmental planning and sustainability. So my position resides in the Planning and Community Development Department, and through that role, I help prepare a citywide resilience plan for Dover, which I'm actively engaged in helping implement on behalf of the community. And I'll get to talking to you a lot of those different projects later on, but just really excited to be here. I think Dover has taken sustainability and resilience very serious for a number of years, but it's exciting to have my role now for a couple of years now as being really a point person that community members can go to and committees can engage with throughout this type of work. So I'd like to say, one of the leaders in the state of New Hampshire when it comes to innovative ideas, and it's really been reflected by the vibrancy we see in our community, including our business community. And we'll continue to grow and prosper as a sustainable community in New Hampshire.
I can second that Dover is a leader. So.
Absolutely. Well, I think actually Dover, Lebanon, Keene, we are certainly some of the leading cities here in New Hampshire on this. My name is Karen Leo Hill. I'm a 19-year city councilor in Lebanon. I'm also have served as the Grafton County Treasurer for the last 7 years. I was the mayor of Lebanon a while ago. Lebanon is the regional hub for an area that crosses the borders, so New Hampshire and Vermont. Anyone from the Upper Valley or Upper Valley adjacent? Okay, excellent. So we're like the center of the universe, actually. But you know, Lebanon is a city of 15,000 people, but we're right there. We're kind of the capital for a region that's over 100,000 people. So we're a micropolitan area, one of the largest micropolitan areas in the country. And that is when you are basically too rural to be urban, but you're too urban to be rural. And so that's kind of what you have here. And about 20 years ago, when they were doing the census, they came up with that idea of a micropolitan area. Now, one of the challenges in New Hampshire is that we use property taxes to pay for everything, almost everything. Now, in Lebanon, where we have 15,000 residents and an even smaller number, only about 6,000 homeowners, it means that those people are paying for services, police, fire, emergency medical services, the roads, infrastructure. For a population, during the day, our population is anywhere from 3 to 4 times the size of our resident population, because we have all the jobs, we have the shopping, we have the entertainment, everything kind of happens in Lebanon. We're together actually with Lebanon and Hartford, just across the river in Vermont, and together with Hanover, we're the core. So this presents some real challenges. And I think about sustainability, it really became, we were one of the communities, like many around the country in the mid-2000s, that became really engaged with the concept of sustainability. As mayor in 2008, I signed on to the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement on behalf of the people of Lebanon. We created the Lebanon Energy Commission, which has served as an advisory body as well as a real working group for 15 years now, spearheading a lot of energy initiatives in particular, but also sustainability more largely speaking. But the idea of sustainability, I think, really resonates with people, a lot of people, especially in New England, because it's the intersection of a lot of our values. We want to be using our resources efficiently. This is a good Yankee concept. We also want to be good stewards of the planet. We know that our quality of life here is really connected to our environment. And so this is something that also is shared across many different political ideologies and spectrums. And so sustainability, making good use of the resources that we have, planning for the future, it really resonated in Lebanon. I think that's why it's been a guiding principle for us. We actually adopted sustainability as our guiding principle about 15 years ago and have used it. It's really kind of the place that we start from for not just conversations about energy, but also conversations about equity, conversations about we'll get to adaptation, but when we're dealing with our stormwater infrastructure. So it's really an overarching concept that we've embraced wholeheartedly, and that is really at the core of what we do in Lebanon. And I've been really proud to be a part of that and proud to get to share some of our initiatives with you today.
Hi, I'm Zach Luce. I'm really wearing 2 hats here today. I'm the founder and CEO of Paragon Digital Marketing in Keene. We went through a deep energy retrofit of an old church that sat vacant for about 10 years. It's right downtown, and got it to better than net zero energy usage. So it's been a huge investment in our community and saving this whole building and in my business. I don't even blink when electric rates go up now. So it's been, I could talk about that all day. But as part of that, I was asked to be on our city's Energy and Climate Committee, and I'm now chair of that, and that's the capacity I'm here today. And I think as a city, we're really looking to the future and making sure we're resilient and making a lot of investments in alternative energy. The city's a huge consumer of electricity and energy in general. And it's a big impact that we can have just by making investments in where our energy comes from. And as a city, we have a goal of getting to 100% renewable energy by 2030, and for electricity alone, and then by 2050, all energy coming from electricity. So it's a pretty huge goal that a group of volunteers on an energy committee is trying to accomplish.
Thank you all. Hopefully you have a sense now of just how much leadership is reflected up here. And to Karen's point about mid-2000s, you know, the sustainability conversation has really become prominent in the last maybe 5 years in the business community especially, but many communities across New Hampshire and the US have been working quietly at this. They don't have marketing departments necessarily, but they're out there doing it and have been doing it for decades. And communities like Keene and Lebanon have been role models for, and Dover too, role models for others across the country. So we're lucky to be here in New Hampshire with these leading communities. So you heard a little bit about the why. We're going to do one more round robin before we go to directed questions, more directed questions. And so would just love to hear a little bit more about the what. Talk to us about one or two of your priority initiatives and how they impact and are impacted by your local business community.
Sure, happy to start. Thanks, Jen. So there's a lot of initiatives happening in Dover, but I only have time to highlight a few of them, and I'll highlight the ones that most pertain to, I think, the business community in this case. So one initiative that we're really proud of that just kicked off is Dover's Community Power Program, which launched just this past October, enrolling over 13,000 customers in that program. And through a collaboration with the Community Power Coalition New Hampshire, we've been able to leverage pool purchasing power to allow customers in Dover to access lower electric rates and be able to purchase up to 50% renewable energy at below the utility default price. So we've determined in the first 3 months of operating that program, we'll save Dover customers over $500,000 in electric savings. And that is real money that can be invested back in the community, that could be spent at local businesses and really, you know, bolster the local economy and regional economy. So we're very excited and proud of that. You know, it's helping us achieve our climate goals by building up a reserve fund that we'll be able to tap into to build out local renewable energy projects, which again have major implications when it comes to cost savings and environmental implications as well. Of course, climate change is one of the driving factors behind why we're doing this work, but we've been able to pencil out that things like putting in and designing a 2.5 megawatt solar array for a wastewater treatment facility could produce millions and millions of dollars of savings over the lifetime of that project for the city of Dover. That is money that the tax base is currently or that will be returned to the taxpayers and provide new value-added services, as we are a customer service organization as a municipal government. So we're looking at a lot of different strategies like that. Another project that I'd like to highlight is we're working on implementing a street tree plan in Dover, so improving the number of street trees in our urban core. That has implications for stormwater, it has implications for urban air quality, and it increases the vibrancy and general enjoyment of people walking and spending time downtown. And if we're able to improve the ecological health of our community in Dover, then we'll improve the total health of our community, and that means people spending less money on emergency health care and being able to spend more money in their or on businesses and in their community in such a way that, bolsters our economy. One last initiative that I want to touch on here is our transfer development rights program, which I think has been really successful in Dover. That concept allows developers to come in and gain additional density than that would be allowed by zoning. But the trade-off there is, we're facing a housing crisis. So it's allowing for more dense urban development, which we need to help solve that housing crisis and provide housing for employees working at businesses. But the purchase of those additional units, which is dictated by the planning board, produces a revenue stream for our conservation fund. So then our conservation commission can go out and protect land with really valuable ecological integrity and conservation value. So then we're able to balance protecting, valuable natural resources within Dover with, trying to help solve the housing crisis and providing affordable housing for people in our community. So that's been really exciting effort.
I want to say, me too, to so many of those things. We have a lot of similar things happening. So I'll highlight a couple things in Lebanon. We're on phase 3 of doing solar array installations. So we did some earlier ones at the landfill and some other places. And so now we're looking at kind of, you start with the low-hanging fruit. Now we've identified up to 30 sites on municipal property around the city that we think could be suitable for solar arrays. So we're engaging in that. And part of that is actually going to be a storage. The idea is to build up storage so that we can actually kind of create a microgrid so that if something goes wrong, that we can still power our municipal vehicles. We're doing a lot more conversion. We're looking at converting more and more of our fleets. And one of the issues, speaking of resiliency for our PD, the police department wants to make sure if they're converting to electric vehicles, how can they make sure that in the risk of a power outage, they can still have, running vehicles, which of course is important. So we're looking at both at the landfill. So we've got a landfill gas to energy project that actually was one of the first things I started working on almost 20 years ago, and it's finally up and running. So you have to be very persistent and dedicated about these things. But we're looking at putting in one of those DC fast chargers at the landfill that would be powered behind the grid from the landfill gases, so that we can have our own backup power source to charge our police department vehicles. And this is, you kind of encounter obstacles and some hurdles along the way. And so this is what part of resiliency is about: identifying what are the obstacles and the hurdles, and then finding plans and ways to make those work. So I think that's a good example of kind of resiliency and an initiative we're excited about. We just got a grant to get 2 electric street sweepers. We're very excited about this. They're pretty new, only a couple of years old. So we're testing out some stuff there. And then I will point out that our Energy Advisory Commission, just to give you a different sense, they're working on some community-wide efforts, and one of those is they're looking at helping residents and businesses to replace up to 25% of Lebanon hot water heaters that are currently oil, and moving those to energy-efficient electric water heaters. And so that's a kind of a community-wide initiative that we're trying to do as well, and an example of ways that businesses and residents can work together with our energy commissions to advance mutual goals.
I think I could say me too to most of those things that you guys are doing. So I think as an energy committee, 2 of the things that I'll highlight that we're working on, one is a solar buddy program, where businesses that have implemented solar on their businesses are being paired up with other business owners to share their experience, what they've learned, how it's going, to inspire other businesses and let them know how easy it is if you find the right help or the right people to do it. The other impactful thing I think that we've done in Keene that was kind of unique was the city partnered with businesses to buy CDFA tax credits and used Southwestern Community Services funding to weatherize distressed homes in neighborhoods that really needed it to help low-income renters. And most of these people were on fuel assistance and other programs, so that was a really cool way of a lot of the federal funding for weatherization doesn't cover all the other things that have to happen to fix up a home and weatherize it. So those CDFA tax credits that the local businesses purchased for this program helped fill all those gaps. And I think they have a goal of like 21 homes to weatherize. So that was a really cool, successful program that's in place.
Such a wonderful array of programs, and again, kind of highlights this triple bottom line and how that's all synergistic. It's not one or the other. The benefits for people, the benefits for balance sheets, and the benefits for the environment. Zach, actually, did you want to maybe say a little bit more about tools or resources or programs that can be helpful to the business community that Keene or other communities offer that it'd be great if more people were more aware of?
Yeah. There were a number of things that I took advantage of with my renovation, and one of them was with the city using there's a 79E tax credit if you can show community benefit for your project, which if you're doing energy efficiency improvements, you can usually show that. I don't think it's available everywhere, but a lot of communities in the state have adopted it, and they'll freeze your property taxes for 5 years. And not include those investments in your building and your energy efficiency in your taxes. So that makes it a lot easier to invest that money into the future of your business. Your energy committee in your town is always willing to help and knows everybody in the game. I'm gonna do a shout out for Scott Meslansky back there in the corner. He was a huge help with my project. CDFA knows their way around all the programs and funding and stuff that are available out there, so they're a huge resource when even if you're just going to do solar panels on your business or look to reduce the cost of your refrigeration or lighting. There's a lot of resources they can tap you into.
If I can add in, I wanted to underscore something that Jackson said. Lebanon is one of the founders of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. A lot of you might know Cliff Below, who was a state senator, a state representative, public utilities commissioner, the most overqualified assistant mayor in the history of New Hampshire, I think. But we're very fortunate to have him in Lebanon doing all of this work that's really benefiting us statewide. And Lebanon ratepayers, since we adopted the program back, I think it was in April, have saved over $1 million. And so that's residents and business owners. So that's certainly something. If you are, now in Lebanon, the way it worked is that residents were, once Lebanon decided to join, all residents became members of the Community Power Coalition. They can opt out, no downside, but businesses are on an opt-in basis. So you might check and see if your community is one of the 42 or so in the state that are part of the Community Power Coalition, because if you're a business owner, you may not be benefiting from something that is already available to you. And if your community is not a member of the Community Power Coalition, then you could certainly advocate to your city leaders, your town leaders, maybe there's an energy committee or maybe it's a select board, that they should consider joining the Community Power Coalition, and they're happy to come out and do a very curated presentation about how your community could benefit. So I really cannot speak highly enough about the potential for Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire to improve your bottom line.
Actually, Karen, while you have the mic, I want to pick up on something you referenced in one of your earlier responses, which is resilience and what communities are doing not only to reduce emissions, which is of course very important, but also the kind of flip side, deal with the impacts of climate we're seeing or know we will see. Could you say a little more about that for us?
Sure, and I'll have 3 things real quick then. About 10 years ago, we experienced a microburst right over literally one street in Lebanon. It was incredible. You would have thought it was just, I don't know, that an earthquake happened, but it was so much rain in a very short period of time, completely washed out the road and all of the ditches and everything around it. So we qualified for FEMA funding, but as many of you might know, FEMA funds will only rebuild back to the existing status. Well, you know, at the time, and I'm going to say this, it might not be exactly right, but I think our stormwater, our ditches on the side of the road and our culverts were being sized to about a 25-year storm level. And we're just seeing much more of these storms, these high impact storm events. And we said, you know what, we'll take the money from FEMA, never going to say no to free money, but we're going to augment with taxpayer dollars so that we can build to the 50-year standard, so that we're not spending more money coming back and fixing washouts. We're going to plan for the future. We know the storms are going to keep coming fast and furious. And, you know, at some point we're going to have to reevaluate and probably look at a 75-year or even a 100-year standard, depending on what part of the city we're in. So this is a way that we're incorporating resiliency and adaptation particularly in our stormwater infrastructure. We've now made it a policy that in general, anytime we're making a replacement, we are upsizing for the future. Secondly, I want to talk about Lebanon gets its drinking water from Lake Mascoma. Now, many of you might have heard about cyanobacteria. This is making water systems, particularly smaller ones, but ponds, lakes, smaller lakes, you know, increased fertilizer, increased human activity, the heating of the climate. It's all contributing to make our water sometimes undrinkable, not suitable for, sometimes, you know, dogs can't even go swimming in it. So it's certainly not fit for drinking water. So we've become very concerned about the future. Lake Mascoma has not had cyanobacteria yet, but Canaan Street Lake, which is just next door, has, and it's been closed to public use at different times when the levels get too high. So we are actually looking at drilling a well, and our early studies are very promising that we're in a good hydrological, geological place to do this. And I think this is very important for the future of Lebanon. You know, obviously access to drinking water is one of the most fundamental things that as a city we need to provide. And so even though it is going to be a very costly endeavor, it really is important adaptation and resilience measure. Lastly, the city of Lebanon is embarking on an initiative to build a daycare facility. Now, this is a little controversial because a lot of people are like, you know, we already have too much that we're paying with our taxpayer dollars. We need to focus on public safety, you know, the core functions of city government. Childcare is not the core function of city government, according to a lot of people, but something that really became clear during the pandemic, particularly, although we had seen it beforehand, was that, you know, our workforce is not that resilient. When people are dropping out and they cannot work, businesses cannot find employees because employees are staying home because childcare is so expensive. You know, that's a different way of thinking about resilience. It's not the energy perspective that we're talking about a lot today, but I'm seeing that a lot of these kind of social programs are also really impacting resilience. And so that's why the city is kind of going out on a limb. We're going to put in the land. We're trying to work on a congressionally directed appropriation to build the facility, and then we're going to be owning it, so we're going to have to maintain it. So there certainly is, the taxpayers have some skin in the game here, but we're also looking to partner with businesses to help fund this project as well. And so I think it's just another way that we're trying to think about resiliency in Lebanon.
Wonderful leadership. Thank you for those stories and examples. And I'm sure there are many more from the other communities, so ask them about them at lunch. Jackson, one more question for you, or I was hoping you could at least start us thinking about this. I think a lot of what we've been talking and thinking about today comes back to community and collaboration. So we all, you know, there's leadership, we only take individual action, but it doesn't add up to anything and it's not sustainable if we're not doing it together and learning from each other. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the kinds of collaborations and networks that are meaningful for your work in Dover and for other communities in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jen. So collaborations and
co-production of knowledge is so critical for solving societal challenges when it comes to sustainability and resilience. You know, Jen had highlighted NEMS earlier, the New England Municipal Sustainability Network. That has been such a valuable network for myself as a newer sustainability professional entering the field to learn from others that are working on similar problems across New England. I mean, many communities, big and small, have same type of issues, or we can at least share with each other ideas about how to adapt as communities and best serve people that live there with the resources we have. Because ultimately, we need to be stewards of the resources that are available to us. And UNH has been an excellent facilitator when it comes to NEMS. Another regional collaboration that I would like to highlight briefly is the Coastal Adaptation Work Group. More prominent in this region of the state, certainly. But with them, we're looking at issues at, storm resilience, like what was mentioned earlier, things like the nitrogen loading problem in Great Bay that we're all very aware of, and other types of problems that are facing us in terms of, infrastructure and also, ecological health. And so these partnerships are crucial to make sure that we have communities working together on solving this, because it's not just individual each community, it's affecting all of us.
Thank you. So kind of last question before we go to audience questions is about action. So the theme of the day is action. What would you like everyone in this room to know they should go out and do in terms of working with being a effective community member and benefiting from being parts of their community in terms of sustainability and resilience?
Join your energy committee. We need help. We have big goals, and we give a lot of advice to city council and other city bodies and organizations, and even the DOT comes to us for feedback sometimes. So you can have a big impact just by participating in an energy committee. I think that I'm biased, but I think that's a really good way to make an impact. The other thing is just make small changes to your business or what you do at home. It doesn't take that much to start making an impact if we all just do a little bit. You don't have to undertake a massive project to make a small change and switch to compostable dishes at your office or something like that.
I like that. That's like the very micro. What can we do? I'll give the macro that we're not going to solve any of the major problems that we have: housing, childcare, the workforce issues, climate change. No single sector is able to do it alone. And I've been very encouraged to see more businesses coming to the table and saying, yes, we need to support working families. We need to put together some of the infrastructure, particularly around childcare. I'm seeing a lot more businesses recognizing that this is something that is affecting not just families, it's affecting their bottom lines. And I think the more we can see the business community coming to the table, whether it's locally to support different energy initiatives or other good things that are happening at the local level, or whether it's at the state level by supporting, there's the New Hampshire Business Industry Association, and they've traditionally had a certain set of policies that they lobby on. But there are a lot more places that businesses can have an impact and get involved and have a voice at the table, particularly, I think, around supporting working families, which is a really important part of resilience and sustainability, because our state is not sustainable if we don't have working families. That is the core of what makes an economy work for all of us. And so I think using your voice, particularly for advocacy at the local level and at the state level, is really important.
Yeah, you both made some excellent points. I'll just add on that as someone who works for a municipality, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from our local business owners and what their needs are. We want to help support you because you're so critical to the vibrancy and life of our communities. And I can't thank our Office of Business Development enough. They've been such an excellent resource at the City of Dover. And as the Resilience Manager, I collaborate with them frequently in trying to get information out through our outreach coordinator to businesses about things that they can leverage. But we want to hear your feedback. We want to, get your engagement at community meetings, at the committee level that was mentioned earlier, because, you're critical parts of the community.
Wonderful, thank you. And the kind of call to action around advocacy reminds me that I was having a conversation earlier with Jo Field. I don't know if she's still here, but she reminded me that New Hampshire is in the process of updating its climate action plan. And there are listening sessions happening that are being facilitated by New Hampshire Listens out of UNH. Some of them are virtual, one will be in person. I'm sure we can make that information available to folks afterwards, but that's something that, again, your input is vital. So hope you will weigh in on that. And I'm going to take moderator's privilege and add on a call to action of my own. I mentioned, NEMS is one piece of work that I do. Another is my background is in carbon accounting and greenhouse gas management. And so at UNH, we've developed, I'm a co-creator of a tool for climate and nitrogen footprinting called SciMap that's designed for small organizations. It's very affordable. And so that's a resource you can take advantage of. And we have a clinic Fiona referenced earlier, similar to the Be Impact Clinic, where we train students, this time on carbon footprinting, and we team them up with your business to either do your baseline assessment or your update. And it's an amazing opportunity for the students, and it's valuable for you, as you heard Julian say earlier, where to start, measure your emissions. So come talk to us about that. Kat coordinates that program too. Would love to work with your organizations on that. Also, I'm going to brag on Jackson momentarily, who's a superstar for lots of reasons. He helped work on UNH's own climate action plan, and he was also part of our summer sustainability fellowship program, where we recruit students who have expertise for projects that you design and you need that add capacity to your organization around sustainability to work with you full time over the summer. And so I think a number of organizations in this room have taken advantage of that. Our fellow alumni network is amazing and out there changing the world. And while they're with you, they do amazing work too. So those are my additional calls to action on that front. Take advantage of those resources. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions, before we go to lunch. Who's got questions for our panelists? Go ahead, Colleen, and then I'll go over there. Oh yeah, wait, sorry, wait for the mic, thanks, sorry. I should have gone back first.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is so interesting to hear about. I am curious in terms of the indigenous land and indigenous communities that exist or have existed, and sort of bringing those perspectives into not only climate action plans, but also just more general community planning. How do cities go about that?
Sir?
Yeah, sure. That's a really great question, Colleen. Thank you for bringing it up. Lebanon is, we just created our DEI Commission last year, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusiveness Commission. And this is something that we've been grappling with, is how do we, I think you were talking about the word greenwashing, but there's, all this kind of performative actions, and a lot of groups are doing, land acknowledgements at the beginning of meetings, but land acknowledgements without some sort of supporting action feels a little like the equivalent of greenwashing. And so I don't have an answer for you yet, but I will tell you that this is a great question, and exactly the kind of question that we have some really great people, some great volunteers who are really interested in and working on right now. It's been the topic actually of some conversations. How can we have meaningful action that matches the words? And I will tell you that in my perspective of almost 2 decades, the words weren't even part of the conversation 20 years ago. And so I am encouraged, democracy moves slowly, but I've been doing it long enough that I can be encouraged by some of the progress that I'm seeing. And so the fact that more and more people are starting to use better words and be more thoughtful, and are also trying to engage in meaningful action to support those words, I think is the right direction for us to go in. And it will take people like you continuing to ask the questions to keep us pushing forward in that direction, because it won't happen without people pushing.
Thanks for that great question. Maybe we have one more over here. Yeah, Andrea? Oh, Beth's got a microphone. One.
Last night, I was able to attend a community power meeting because it's coming to Amherst.
Oh, good.
And there were taxpayers in the room that didn't see it as a win or a plus, or just how hard is it to, like, did you meet any resistance when you had a project that was going to cost some money? How hard was it to sell to the taxpayer?
Fortunately, most of the projects these days in this space are resulting in long-term savings. There may be some initial costs up front, but we need to get away from bottom line budgets and take more holistic life cycle cost approaches, especially in our communities, which are, hopefully going to last for the future, right? So when it came to CPC&H in Dover and launching our community power program, I would say there was some resistance from a few community members, but overall there was a lot of support behind it because we're frankly just introducing another option for people and increasing the competitiveness of that market, which should only drive down costs and drive innovations overall. And with a program like that, it was an easier sell from the economic perspective because we could show the immediate value that we're to be producing for the community. Again, $500,000 in the first 3 months of operations is not a small number. For other projects, you do have to look at longer term cost savings. The solar array we're eyeing right now for the wastewater treatment facility, we're talking about potentially maybe doing an upfront purchase of that. And that would require some initial financing, which may raise some red flags for folks. But when you look at the 25-year payback of that, we're estimating at this point in time over $9 million in savings with about, a $4 million project up front. So $5 million net. And that's not even to mention the environmental benefits that that's producing as well, and the, resilience also. And when I look at other sectors, like moving towards electrification and building out distributed energy resources, we're now able to take more local control when it comes to power production. And so you're increasing your economic resilience because you're no longer reliant on global conflicts dictating the prices of energy that affects, New Hampshire ratepayers and everyday business owners. If you saw what happened to the natural gas supply delivery rate when the Russo-Ukrainian war really took off, I mean, that had a real implication on not only natural gas prices in the state of New Hampshire, but also the cost of electricity, because about 50% of electricity in ISO New England comes from natural gas, right? So that's a really, I hold on to that point because you can really increase the economic resilience of the community by making some of these initial upfront investments. And that's some of the conversation I've been able to have with folks. And hopefully, I think that's been working quite well.
And I'll just add,
There's literally no downside to joining the Community Power Coalition. It doesn't cost you any money. It only saves you money. And by the way, if you don't want to save money, you can opt out and there's no penalty. So you can pay more if you want. But I think there's now enough time that you can show the data on how many communities, how much money ratepayers have saved in other communities. So hopefully that can help in Amherst. It's a lot easier to come from a city where you only have to persuade 9 city councilors or however many you have, and not the entire community. But the Community Power Coalition is like the most no-brainer thing ever.
Karen, I think you might have just given them their new tagline. If you don't want to save money, you can opt out. It's like also potentially the tagline for sustainability in business, right? Well, I think we could keep talking all afternoon, and I hope you will strike up conversations. Thank you so much, Zach and Karen and Jackson, for being here, for your leadership. for being role models and partners in this really important work.